Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, May 30th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 92 days, the game against Michigan in 183 days. If you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at GratefulGriddleOH.com. I have not checked their schedule, but maybe they can get the Grateful Griddle truck over to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center for the first weekend of official visits for the 2025 or 2026 class, first official visit weekend in 2025. These recruiting classes are kind of confusing. You know that already if you follow recruiting at all. But this is the first weekend of official visits. One thing that's not confusing, we got our buddy Andrew Ellis from Buckeye Huddle back on with us. Andrew, there are, I counted 3 5-star players, a number 7 overall player in the 247 composite, Felix Ojo, the offensive tackle out of Texas, the number 17 overall player, running back Savion Hiter out of Virginia, and then the number 27 overall player, linebacker Xavier Griffin, a recent decommit. They are all going to be in town this weekend. Let's start with the big man up front, Felix Ojo. How big is this visit for Ohio State?
It's a big visit, but we've talked about this before, the different philosophy right now with offensive line recruiting, whereas if Ohio State missed on a guy like this in years past, it's like, what are we going to do? Now you've got Sam Greer in the fold already. They're going to obviously take at least 2, if not 3 tackles. If they can get this kid from Texas to come to Columbus rather than Austin, it would be one of the bigger recruiting wins at any position in recent history. I've seen many experts say that, he's crystal ball to Texas, but it's not really like in ink. It's very much in pencil. And if there's any team that has the chance to kind of change that it would be Ohio State. So that's a big one. 5-star offensive tackles are very hard to find. They're very hard to land. And if they could get him to go along with Sam Greer, it would be, it would be incredible. I think getting the first official visit, maybe not ideal since he's, got others to take, but just getting him up here again and being right there with Texas for the top spot, that's a pretty big deal for Ohio State.
All right, next up, let's go to the running back room and Savion Hiter. We've seen Carlos Lachlan work his magic on the recruiting trail. This would be a big addition. We actually talked about Savion Hiter a week or 2 ago on a show where we were kind of looking deeper at the running back recruiting situation. So we've talked about him a little bit, but this is a clear top of the board guy that they're bringing in this weekend.
Yeah, he's one of maybe 2 guys along with Derek Cooper that if they could land one of them, that might be it for the class at running back. I don't think the Ohio State leads for either of them right now. It seems like they're in a better spot for Hiter than they are Cooper. But the other side of this, and we talked about it the other week, if he doesn't end up at Ohio State, there's a solid chance that he's going to end up at Michigan. Georgia and Tennessee are also involved. I think he kind of popped up on Knoxville's campus last weekend. So huge weekend for Carlos Lachlan. I don't think it's a scenario where even if you hit a grand slam, the kid's going to shut down his recruitment or anything like that. But this is a pivotal weekend for running back recruiting in the 2026 class.
And then the third 5-star I wanted to talk about, linebacker Xavier Griffin. This is one of these recruitments I love. Was recently committed to USC, then decommitted. Now he's about to start his official visits, and he already has the decision date set for less than a month from now, June 29th. So what are the odds the Buckeyes can bring in a 5-star linebacker in Xavier Griffin?
I would say pretty low. If you're looking for a 5-star linebacker, you might want to look at Tyler Atkinson a little bit more. I think usually when a kid has a decision date set, most times that means they have a solid inclination of where they're going to go. I ever since the decommitment from USC, and they've gotten very good at losing commitments from these guys from the southeast part of the country. It's almost like Ohio State's running back recruiting for Florida. It seems like every year the state of Florida, they lose one of those guys to Miami. Hopefully that doesn't happen this time. But I would say the odds for Ohio State landing Xavier Griffin are very low. After the Bama buzz started after that decommitment, I think some picks have come in for him to end up at Alabama. But who knows? Maybe Alabama lands him. Maybe that would maybe if Alabama knows they're going to land him, that might help Ohio State in the pursuit of a Sincere Johnson or somebody like that, as we talked about the other.
And we've talked a bunch about the concern around defensive line recruiting, and that's sort of the one big question mark really for this 2026 class, and just sort of the general state of the program right now is on the the depth and the interior of the defensive line, but just the future of the defensive line as well with the recruiting. This is a big week. They're bringing in 4 defensive linemen this weekend on official visits. Who are the names that people need to know?
Yeah, so Larry Johnson is just so hard to figure out. I've always said that Mark Givler is kind of the guy when it comes to actually deciphering Larry Johnson's puzzles here. So nobody knows what's going to happen with defensive line. There's really not anybody as far as edge guys, defensive ends that Ohio State seems to lead for right now. I would say that tackle's in a better spot, and none of these guys are visiting this weekend, but Deuce Geralds and PJ Dean are supposed to be here later in June. But this weekend, there's a guy named Cameron Brickle who's visiting. There's a kid named Kerry Wilder who's visiting. These are honestly still names that I think the Ohio State fan base are learning about because you just don't know what the heck Larry Johnson is doing. It's hard to complain about him given the defensive line performance in the playoff run, but it's one of those scenarios where I think somebody is just going to commit out of the blue along the defensive line, and it's just going to be one of those things where I didn't even know Ohio State was in it for that guy. So a couple visitors this weekend. I don't think either of those names are guys Ohio State leads for, but again, Larry Johnson behind the scenes just kind of is like a ninja or something, and maybe Ohio State secretly leads for one of those guys and nobody knows. But biggest concern right now in the class, June's going to be a big month with Gerald and Dean and some of those guys coming in. And then defensive end, it's just a crapshoot at this point. There's not even really any names that we know that are likely. We talked about Richard Wesley decommitting from Oregon. That seems unlikely. It's just a crapshoot. And it's always this way along the defensive line. In a way, it's fun to follow, but it's also just kind of frustrating as a fan because you never know what the heck is going on.
Yeah, everyone is just sort of hovering with their hand just poised just about a half an inch above the panic button at all times on the defensive line recruiting front, it seems like right now. A couple of guys who are current commits who are coming in this weekend. Wide receiver Jaden Ricketts. He's out of Watkins Memorial High School in suburban Columbus, and tight end Corbin Fordham out of Florida. He's coming in. You're also bringing in a couple offensive linemen, Aaron Thomas and Brett Colajoy. The offensive line recruiting, it seems like that's much less of a concern right now. That was an area where for years under Justin Fry, it seemed like that was the one where everyone is always deeply concerned for, the whole cycle. It seems like that's sort of turned around a little bit, even just in the last little bit since Tyler Bowen's been in charge.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely turned around, and it's not just the commitments that he's landed, which obviously have been great, but it's just the number of guys that you actually can talk about. The Felix Ojo is obviously the big fish out there, and I say it's probably unlikely that they do land him. But if they can land an Aaron Thomas or somebody like that to go along with Sam Greer, I mean, you're looking at a really good offensive line class. So Tyler Bowen his trajectory right now is seemingly in a different direction as Larry Johnson's, as sad as that is to say. But I think the Aaron Thomas, that might be the more realistic guy they could get to kind of complement Sam Greer. And I will say Larry Johnson does have that Jake Cruel kid from IMG Academy, defensive end. He's visiting this weekend, but I think that's another name that nobody views Ohio State as the clear leader for or anything like that. So big opportunity this weekend, I guess.
Big opportunity this weekend. And then, of course, another good solid 6 months before anyone actually puts pen to paper. So going to be plenty of time to let all of this drama play out. And you can watch it all with us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Have a lot to talk about this month as the Buckeyes head into not only official visit season, but also camp season. Official visits, of course, looking mostly at the class of 2026, and then camp season looking mostly at 2027, 2028, and beyond. But it's going to be a very busy summer at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark and Berm cover recruiting. We got Andrew on our board. We got our whole team of X's Nose Gurus there as well, all to make you a smarter football fan, an incredible team. It is all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope to see you there. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.